This is our state report card data analysis project. I had completed this work with Narissa, Nick, Mary, and Sue. We chose to analyze the Waukesha School District STEM Academy because of its close proximity to Catholic Memorial. We did not choose to use the CMH DPI report card because it offers very little information, as it is based off of the 54 WCPC students that were tested last school year. Waukesha STEM Academy is a K-4 through 8th grade school that has an enrollment of 762 students. The Waukesha STEM Academy is part of the Waukesha School District, which is a suburban district. The School District of Waukesha offers open enrollment for its schools, and the Waukesha STEM Academy has 2.8% of students from this group. Student groups represented at Waukesha STEM Academy are 13.4% are identified as economically disadvantaged, 10.5% students with disabilities, and 2.5% are English language learners. The racial and ethnic groups represented are white, 73.8%, Asian, 11.2%, Hispanic Latino, 9.6%, two or more races, 3.8%, Black African American, 1.2%, and American Indian or Alaskan Native, 0.5%. As you can see, their overall score is 84.1%, which gives them an accountability rating that significantly exceeds expectations. As you can see here, the math and ELA scores, the student achievement is 81.3. Their English language arts achievement is 35.9, and math achievement is 45.4. In comparison, student achievement is 17.8 above the state average. Their English language learners achievement is 4 above the state average, and mathematics achievement is 13.8 above the state average, which would indicate to me that overall school growth, closing gaps, on track, post-secondary readiness scores are all going to be above, and that as a school that would focus on science, technology, and math, they are definitely striving in their mathematics achievement. Here you will see some graphs. Sorry, that's the word, graphs. In regard to the ELA and math achievement of students at the Waukesha STEM Academy. Student achievement in ELA and math. In the 2017-2018 school year, there were 27.2% of the students that were considered below basic. Over the last 3 years, Waukesha STEM Academy has seen an overall decrease in the number of advanced students in ELA, but it was worth noting that there was a slight increase between the 2017 and 2018 school years. Over the last 3 years, the Waukesha STEM Academy has seen an overall increase in advanced students in math. There was a slight decrease, 0.9%, between the 2016 and 2017 school years. It should be noted that, like the ELA scores, there was a little bit of a dip, but yet the students are still achieving at an overall high rate in math. When looking at the student supplemental data, as I looked at some of the percentages of students scoring a proficient and higher, what I found very interesting from the data represented in this ELA chart is that white students and English language students have similar levels of proficiency, but that students identified as Hispanic score considerably lower. There is a large Hispanic population in Waukesha, and I'm wondering if there could possibly be a crossover between students that are identified as Hispanic and English language students. The data from this chart indicates that English language students are well supported in their ELA courses at the STEM Academy. Unfortunately, the percentage of disabled students scoring at proficient or better is significantly lower than other populations in the school. When looking at the percentage of students scoring proficient or higher in math, my observations were that a percentage of the students scoring proficient or better in ELA is mirrored in the data is mirrored in the data showing the same information in math. White students and English language students are excelling in math scores, while Hispanic and disabled students are scoring considerably lower. It should be noted that even though these two groups of students score lower than their white and English learner counterparts, their math scores are 10 to 15% higher than their ELA scores. This, to me, would seem to be reflective of a strong math curriculum that would be presented at the STEM Academy. Waukesha STEM Academy's overall school growth, 80.2, is ahead of the state average of 66.0 by a considerable amount. When one digs deeper into the data, their growth in ELA is 30.2 is close to being on par with the state average of 33.0, but is low when considering the max scores out of 50 points. In contrast, their math growth, 50.0, is exceptional and far ahead of the state average of 33.0. Significant value-added scores were noted in the following groups in math: Asian students, 5.0, Hispanic and Latino students, 4.5, and white students, 4.9. When looking at closing the gaps, for the Waukesha STEM Academy, when comparing ELA scores, the Hispanic Latino subgroup has a lower proficiency rate than the white students, along with the economically disadvantaged groups and those with disabilities when compared to their comparison groups. When looking at math scores, the gap is smaller when looking at comparison groups for students of disabilities, those economically disadvantaged, and Hispanic or Latino students. For example, the proficiency rate of students with disabilities is 0.623, and those without disabilities have a rate of 0.666. In both content areas, the Asian subgroup had higher proficiency rates than their comparison groups. When I look at the school data, Waukesha STEM Academy, their closing the gap score of 81.1 exceeds the state score, of 73.9. Although I am not familiar with how the closing the gap data works, it would seem that the Waukesha STEM Academy is doing a good job of closing the gap for English language learners in ELA and math. The data shows that this group of students is far exceeding state data for their subgroup. What I wonder is what strategies are being utilized for these groups of students that could potentially benefit other subgroups within the school. On track post-secondary readiness, their readiness score is 93.3 out of 100. In comparison to the state average, which is 86.3. There is no graduation rate, being a K-4-8 school. Their attendance rate is 74.4. Their third grade ELA is a 7.3 compared to the state average of a 6.2. And their eighth grade math is a 9.7 compared to the state score of 5.7. The percentage of students who are below basic on the third grade ELA was 9.9, and then below basic in math was 7.7. Given again that this was a K4 through 8 school, there was no information obviously about the dropout rate, points deducted, and all things would indicate that they are definitely heading in the right direction, although there is always room for improvement. I did find this to actually be a very fruitful kind of a data dive and experience in general, given that for the most part, Catholic Memorial has not used their state report card. I know that as we were digging through this in whenever that was, November or December, we realized how much room for growth and how valuable utilizing the DPI report card would be for potential families or current stakeholders, as it really houses a lot of very, very important data about our school.